relaxing and stuff.
That's the best part. Oh, nice thing is we can get the breeze without being out in the.
What is this?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I don't know.
Is this? What is that?
Summer, it gets so hot and so humid and so sweaty. And we had church later in the afternoon. So we started, wait, no, it might have been the morning, I forget. But either way, we started a family tradition.
That?
Honey, I'm totally blanking on the name of the park we went, Castlewood, thank you. Anyway, we started a family tradition that on Sundays we often went to this local park called Castlewood that has a bunch of rivers running through it. One time it was super hot, and so we just went into the river to walk around and cool off. And we ended up wading up and down the river for like an hour and a half, just cooling off in the river in Castlewood, and it was so fun. It was such a good adventure, and it's a story about Kellen because that's where Kellen was born, was in Missouri, and he was just little. And I remember he got totally soaking wet because the water was like almost up to his waist when he was standing in the water.
There you go.
Collecting acorns outside the apartment in Missouri with Kellen, and he started going ahead of me, and it was like I was chasing him around and around the building because he would go up and around the apartment and then back down the hill before I could catch up to him. And I started to get really worried that he was lost or something because I couldn't catch up to him.
Now you're just gonna have a line of.
And we would just collect tons and tons of acorns. We would get like a whole bucket.
Oh, I remember.
Hospital story about like when you went to hospital when you were younger. When you were young.
We all
That
remember
was
that.
scary. I remember I was in nursery at the time, and I was pregnant, and I was like, I need to be released when my baby's born.
I want some more apples.
So scary.
Mom, can you tell it?
Careful, don't actually chew on that, Melanie. I know it's very precious to you, but Cora would not be pleased. It's extremely tempting because it does look like a real orange. Hello. It was August, and I had
We'll
a
have your
bad
mommy
cough
tell a story.
for a little while, and I was starting to get better. But then Cora started to get a bad cough, and I could tell that it started to get bad enough that she was like having trouble breathing sometimes, especially at night in her crib. So there was this one night where we were all sleeping, and then she started coughing in the night, and then she started just gasping for air, and I was like, okay, this is not just a normal cough. This is no good. So I insisted that we go to the emergency room. We went to the emergency room, which is the special place in the hospital where they treat people who are coming in who they don't know what's wrong yet and what they need to do. So we took you into the emergency room, Cora, and the doctors checked you out, and they said that they weren't quite sure what was going on, but that they were very worried about your breathing, and they needed to run some more tests, and they needed to do it at the hospital that was specially for children, because the hospital that we were at wasn't as specialized for children. So they said they were going to fly you in a helicopter up to the Primary Children's Hospital. And so I was very worried, and I told them that I thought it was pertussis because I had gotten my vaccine when I was pregnant for pertussis, but apparently, I don't know, it didn't take effect or something, because I was pretty sure I had had whooping cough, but I was an adult, and so I just got over it. But you were a baby, and your body was getting really sick. And they kept saying that it didn't look like pertussis to them, and they didn't think so, but I was like, I'm almost positive that that's what it is. So the nurses came, and they took your temperature, and they gave you some medicine, and I just remember holding you, and you were all hooked up to these IVs and stuff, and you were my tiny little 2-month-old baby, and I hated it. I was so worried.
That's what Owen is now. It's 2 months, a little older.
And luckily, she was so chubby and fat and healthy from nursing so well that she was coping with it like a champ. But she was not happy, and I was not happy. And then they came to life flight you in the helicopter, and they told me that they were going to take you away from me in the helicopter. And up to then, I thought I was going to be allowed to ride with you in the helicopter. So then I just burst into tears, and I was crying because I was so worried. I didn't want them to take my baby away from me. But the nurse gave me a big hug, and she's like, I promise I will be right there with her, and I will take good care of her, and I will meet you at the hospital. So then me and Daddy got in the car, and we drove like crazy, and we called our moms and dads because it had been the middle of the night when this all happened, so we hadn't called anybody yet. And your daddy, Uncle Matt, was so upset and so worried he couldn't even talk to his mom on the phone. He was going to cry. He couldn't even say anything. He was so scared about you. So Daddy was really worried about you, Cora. And so I took the phone and I talked to Grandma Cindy and told her what was going on. And she said she would meet us there at Primary Children's because she was working there at the time and she knew everybody. And we called Grandma Coonan, and she said she'd meet us there too. And when we landed and we got to Primary Children's, they told me that they thought that you had developed a tension pneumothorax, which means that you've been coughing so hard that your lung had developed a tiny little hole, and that was a bad thing because you're not supposed to have air outside of your lungs in your body. But then when they landed, they were taking more x-rays of you, and they realized that either they were wrong or it had resolved when you had been up in the air in the helicopter. So they were really, really glad that that was not the problem and you were doing okay.
Yeah.
And then they let me nurse you, and they checked a few more tests, and they realized that it was actually pertussis, which was the big whooping cough. And so then they started giving you the medicine for that, and they said, okay, she'll start getting better within a few days. Now we know what it is. And they kept you in the hospital for one more night, and then the next day they let me take you home. But I have always been incredibly paranoid about my babies coughing because of that. It makes me so scared when my babies oh.
Over my knee because we were making her laugh, and her neck was stretched out like this, and I noticed that she had a bump on her neck. And I said, that's not supposed to be there. And so, I felt it, and it was kind of hard, and we decided to keep our eye on it, and it just never went away. And then it got bigger and bigger. And we took her to the doctor, and they said, well, that's some kind of a cyst. We had to go to a special doctor that was for the special doctor that was Yep.
Where is it?
And he wanted to wait till she was 2 because
I don't know where your juice is.
surgery on it. We knew we'd have to cut it out and put you in. And so they wanted to wait till she was 2 because it wasn't affecting her breathing or anything, which was good. Because 2-year-olds do better under anesthesia. And when Melanie was 2 years old, we went to the hospital. Actually, it was just an outpatient. No, just kidding. It was at the hospital. It was our insurance, even though it was more expensive. Anyway, we went to the hospital, and she got to put on a purple monster outfit.
I remember a
purple.
monster thing.
And you got to have a mask. Remember, you got to put stickers on the mask. Okay, come here. And she had her special blue bear. And
good old blue
her
bear.
pink dinosaur that she got to take with her. And they wheeled her off. That was so hard. The doctors just took her and wheeled him off in the back. And I'm just crying. And thankfully James was with me during that time. He got the morning off because she only wanted daddy. Okay. And then they cut it out. And now you just have a little scar. But she was... Like, do it again, Melanie. It's
Where's
right
the little
there.
scar?
You can barely see it right
Oh, okay.
Wow.
there. They cut off a little bit of the hyoid just to
I
make
still
sure it
remember a
wouldn't grow
picture
back.
of that.
Hey,
She
come
looked
on,
so
let's go.
tiny on the table.
Let's go. Yeah, she was awful when she woke up. She was just like a panic.
Daddy was in California with Aunt Alicia and Aunt Leanne for his Ironman.
yeah.
So we were at Bear Lake with all of our Coonan family, but Daddy wasn't there.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. So I had tiny little baby Grayson, who was like, by then, it was like July, so he would have been like roughly 4 months or something. Anyway, so we had little baby Grayson and Cora and Kellen was just a little bit older than 3 years old. And we were at the beach at Bear Lake. And we'd set up a canopy, and everybody's playing in the water, and we were all having a super fun time. And I was holding Grayson. And Kellen was playing with his big cousin Ben back behind us. They were like kicking a ball around. And so then I saw...
No, we just went to the puddles.
Oh, to the puddles. Okay, they were playing in the puddles. Thank you, Kellen. So then I saw that Ben came over in front of the canopy and went into the water of the lake and was playing in the lake. And I said, Ben, where's Kellen? And he's like, he's still playing in the puddles. So then I looked behind me and I saw that Kellen wasn't there. I couldn't see him anywhere in the puddles. And so then I said again to Ben, I was like, Ben, where's Kellen? And he's like, he was just playing in the puddles. And Grandpa Coonan, my dad, was like, oh, I'm sure he's around. It's okay. Everything's okay. But then another minute went by and nobody had found him, and I started to really panic. I was like, where is Kellen? And Ben was getting really upset and sad because he realized he felt like it was his fault that Kellen had wandered off. But Ben was just little too, and he wasn't supposed to have to babysit you. So then we started searching everywhere. We started going up and down the lake and asking everybody nearby to us if they'd seen you, because you were wearing some Lightning McQueen swimming trunks. Oh, sorry, Mel. Didn't mean to kick you in the face. My foot was falling asleep underneath Kellen's thumb. He's getting kind of heavy. Anyway, so we started wandering up and down the beach, and the whole time, like, as more and more time goes by, because it had been like almost 10 minutes now since the last time anybody had seen him, I was like, I'm gonna have to call Matt and tell him I lost our son. Like, I was getting so scared and worried that somebody had taken him away, or that he was hurt somewhere and he couldn't get help because we didn't know where he was. And I was getting so scared, and we went further and further down the beach. And finally, Aunt Courtney, who had gone way ahead of us to just see, to ask people where, you know, just if they'd seen you, just to make sure.
Found me.
Yes, Aunt Courtney found you. And I saw her coming back towards me along the beach, holding your hand. And I started running towards you, and I was just crying because I was so scared by then, because it had been almost 15 minutes by the time we found you, and I was so scared that you were going to be lost forever. And I picked you up and I hugged you really tight, and Aunt Rochelle said, "He's really fast, Les. He just got confused about which canopy was ours, and he just started wandering off down the beach looking for everybody." And he got really far in a very short amount of time.
Well, that's because I must have passed the canopy, because some of it I was looking down at the sand, and that's probably when I passed the canopy.
Yeah, you were looking